The gunshot that echoed through the canyon sent birds scattering into the cloudless Wyoming sky as Penelope Evans ducked behind a large boulder, clutching her leather satchel tightly against her chest, her heart hammering wildly as hoofbeats thundered closer. The year was 1878, and the promise of a teaching position in the frontier town of Redemption Creek had brought her west from Boston, not the pursuit by 3 dusty outlaws who'd spotted her traveling alone on the stagecoach road. "Come on out, little lady," one of the men called, his voice carrying the slow drawl of someone who enjoyed frightening others. "We just want your valuables, maybe a little company." Penelope closed her eyes, her breath coming in short gasps. 24 years of proper Boston upbringing hadn't prepared her for this. The stagecoach had broken an axle 10 miles back, and the driver had suggested she wait while he returned to town for repairs. Foolishly, she'd decided to walk ahead, thinking the exercise would do her good after days of cramped travel. Another gunshot cracked the air, closer this time. Chips of stone exploded from the boulder near her head. "Found ya?" a voice growled triumphantly. Penelope scrambled to her feet, ready to run, when the thunder of approaching hooves grew louder. A flash of movement caught her eye as a rider on a massive black stallion burst into the small clearing, dust billowing behind him. The newcomer moved with fluid grace, drawing his revolver in one smooth motion. "3 against 1 lady don't seem sporting to me, boys," he called out, his voice deep and confident. The outlaws wheeled around, startled by the interruption. "Ain't your business, mister," the tallest outlaw snarled. "I'm making it my business," the stranger replied calmly. What happened next was a blur of motion. The stranger fired twice, his aim precise and deadly. One outlaw clutched his shoulder and toppled from his horse. Another dropped his gun with a howl, clutching his bleeding hand. The third outlaw, sensing the changing tide, turned his horse and fled, leaving his companions cursing in the dust. "You gentlemen might want to reconsider your line of work," the stranger said, keeping his revolver trained on them. "Now ride out and don't come back." The wounded men scrambled onto their remaining horses, glaring with hatred but knowing when they were beaten. They disappeared down the trail, leaving only the sound of retreating hoofbeats. Penelope stepped out from behind the boulder, legs trembling. The stranger holstered his weapon and dismounted in one fluid motion. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes the color of faded denim beneath the brim of his dusty brown hat. A few days' worth of stubble shadowed his jaw, and a small scar cut through his right eyebrow. "Are you hurt, madam?" he asked, keeping a respectful distance. "No," Penelope managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "Thanks to you, Mr. Sutton. Samuel Sutton, most folks just call me Sam." He touched the brim of his hat in greeting. "And you'd be Penelope Evans. I'm the new schoolteacher for Redemption Creek." She straightened her skirts, trying to regain some dignity. "Or I will be if I ever make it there." Sam glanced down the empty trail. Stagecoach trouble, broken axle. The driver went back for repairs. Sam nodded, assessing the situation. Town still a fair piece away. "Not safe for you to be walking alone," he hesitated. "I'm headed to Redemption Creek myself. I could escort you if you'd allow it." Penelope hesitated. In Boston, riding alone with a strange man would be scandalous, but this wasn't Boston, and those outlaws might return. "I would be most grateful, Mr. Sutton." Sam led his horse closer. "Call me Sam, please. Mr. Sutton makes me feel like my father." His smile transformed his weathered face, creating creases at the corners of his eyes. "Do you ride, Miss Evans?" "Penelope," she corrected, then admitted, "Not well, I'm afraid." "No trouble. Midnight here is gentle as a lamb when he needs to be." He adjusted the stirrup and offered his hand. "I'll ride behind you." With as much grace as her long skirts allowed, Penelope let him help her into the saddle. The horse was enormous beneath her, and she gripped the saddle horn tightly. Sam swung up behind her with practiced ease, reaching around to take the reins. "Ready?" Penelope nodded, acutely aware of his chest against her back, his arms on either side of her. They set off at an easy pace, the landscape rolling by in shades of brown and gold beneath the afternoon sun. "What brings a Boston lady to Wyoming territory?" Sam asked after a while, his breath warm against her ear. Penelope was surprised. "How did you know I'm from Boston?" She felt rather than saw his smile. "Your accent and those boots aren't made for Western trails." Penelope laughed despite herself. "Is it that obvious? To someone who's spent time out east, yes." "I needed a change," she admitted. "After my father died last year, there wasn't much keeping me in Boston. When I saw the advertisement for a teacher in Redemption Creek, it seemed like fate." She paused. "What about you? Are you from these parts, born in Missouri, been drifting since the war?" There was a heaviness in his voice that suggested deeper waters. "Worked cattle drives, broke horses, spent some time as a scout for the Army. And now I'm heading to Redemption Creek to see about a ranch hand position at the Triple K, owner's an old friend." The sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the landscape in amber hues. Penelope found herself relaxing against Sam's solid presence, her initial discomfort fading with each passing mile. "We should make camp soon," Sam said as shadows lengthened across the trail. "Won't reach town before nightfall." Penelope's stomach tightened. Camping alone with a man she'd just met went beyond mere impropriety, yet what choice did she have? Sam seemed to sense her unease. "I give you my word as a gentleman, Miss Evans, you'll be safe with me." Something in his tone, a sincerity that couldn't be feigned, reassured her. "I trust you, Sam." He guided Midnight to a small clearing near a stream where cottonwood trees provided shelter. With practiced efficiency, Sam helped her down, then set about making camp. Penelope watched, impressed, as he gathered wood for a fire, unsaddled and tended to his horse and pulled supplies from his saddlebags. "Not much for dinner, I'm afraid," he said, setting coffee to boil in a small pot. "Some jerky and hardtack, wasn't expecting company." "It's more than enough," Penelope assured him, settling on a fallen log he'd positioned near the fire. "I have some dried apples in my satchel." The meal was simple but satisfying. As darkness fell completely, the fire cast dancing shadows across their small camp. Stars emerged overhead, more brilliant than Penelope had ever seen in Boston's night sky. "It's beautiful," she murmured, gazing upward. "One thing I never tire of out here," Sam agreed, his face softened in the firelight. "Makes a man feel small and big at the same time." Penelope glanced at him curiously. "What do you mean?" Sam considered his words. "Small cause you see how vast everything is, big cause you're a part of it all." He smiled self-consciously. "Don't mind me, too many nights alone on the trail makes a man philosophical." The honesty in his words touched her. "I like your philosophy." Sam cleared their meager dishes, then spread his bedroll near the fire. "You take this," he said. "I'll keep watch for a while." Penelope hesitated. "I can't take your bedroll. Where will you sleep?" "Been sleeping on hard ground most of my life," he said with a shrug. "One more night won't hurt. We could share it," Penelope suggested, then immediately felt heat rise to her cheeks at her boldness. Sam's expression remained carefully neutral. "That wouldn't be proper, Miss Evans." "Neither is being accosted by outlaws or spending the night alone with a man in the wilderness," she pointed out. "I think we've moved beyond propriety." Sam chuckled, a warm, genuine sound. "You might be right about that." He gestured to the bedroll. "All yours tonight, I insist." Penelope relented, settling onto the surprisingly comfortable bedroll. Sam draped his coat over her for additional warmth. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything today." "Get some rest," he replied, settling against a tree trunk, his rifle across his lap. "We'll reach town by midday tomorrow." Penelope closed her eyes, lulled by the crackling fire and the soft sounds of night creatures. Despite the circumstances, she felt strangely safe in this man's presence, a man who'd entered her life like a character from a dime novel, yet spoke with the quiet wisdom of someone who'd seen both beauty and hardship in the world. She drifted to sleep wondering what Redemption Creek would hold for both of them. Morning arrived with birdsong and the scent of coffee. Penelope opened her eyes to find Sam already up, tending the fire and preparing a simple breakfast. "Sleep well?" he asked, offering her a steaming cup. "Better than I expected," she admitted, accepting the coffee gratefully. Her hair had come partly undone from its pins overnight, and she quickly tried to tuck stray strands back into place, suddenly conscious of her appearance. "Leave it," Sam said softly, then looked away as if he'd spoken out of turn. "I mean, no need to fuss. It's just trail dust between here and town." They ate quickly, packed up camp, and resumed their journey. The morning air was crisp, the sky a brilliant blue overhead. Penelope found herself dreading their arrival in town, knowing this unexpected interlude would end. "Tell me about the school," Sam said as midnight carried them through a meadow dotted with wildflowers. 8 grades in one room from what the letter said, Penelope explained. "About 20 children, mostly from ranching families, some come from quite far away." "Tough life for kids out here," Sam commented. "Education's a luxury many can't afford." "Did you attend school regularly?" she asked. "Until I was 12. Then my pa needed help on the farm." He paused. "But I always liked reading, picked it up whenever I could." "What do you read?" "History, some poetry." He sounded almost embarrassed. "Whitman, Longfellow." Penelope smiled, pleasantly surprised. "I wouldn't have guessed that a cowboy might like poetry. That anyone out here would have access to it." Sam laughed. "The West isn't quite as uncivilized as your Eastern newspapers make it out to be, Miss Evans." By midday, buildings appeared on the horizon. Redemption Creek at last. Penelope felt an unexpected pang of regret as they approached the town limits. Their time together was coming to an end. The main street was busy with wagons, riders, and pedestrians going about their business. Eyes turned toward them as they rode in, a striking pair on the big black horse. "The schoolhouse is just past the church," Sam said, pointing to a white steeple visible at the end of the street. "The teachers' quarters are attached." "How do you know that?" "I've been here before," he said simply. They stopped in front of a modest clapboard building with large windows. A small cabin was attached to one side, the promised accommodations. Sam dismounted first, then reached up to help Penelope down, his hands strong and steady at her waist. "Thank you," she said, finding herself reluctant to step away from him. "Miss Evans, you've arrived." A portly man with a magnificent mustache hurried toward them. "I'm Mayor Hollis. We were concerned when the stagecoach returned without you." "Mr. Sutton came to my rescue," Penelope explained, gesturing to Sam. The mayor's eyes widened slightly. "Sutton, Samuel Sutton," he extended his hand. "Well, this is a fortuitous meeting. John Keller's been expecting you at the Triple K." Sam shook the offered hand. "Heading there next, sir." "Excellent, excellent." The mayor turned back to Penelope. "Let me show you to your quarters, Miss Evans. The school term starts in 3 days, which should give you time to settle in." Penelope glanced at Sam, suddenly at a loss for words. How did one properly thank a man who had likely saved her life? "I should be going," Sam said, reading her hesitation. "John's expecting me." "Of course," she managed, extending her hand formally. "Thank you again, Mr. Sutton." His calloused fingers closed gently around hers. "My pleasure, Miss Evans." Their eyes held for a moment longer than propriety allowed. "Perhaps I'll see you around town." "I'd like that," she replied softly. Sam tipped his hat, mounted midnight, and with one last look, rode away toward the outskirts of town where the Triple K ranch lay. Penelope watched until he disappeared from view, then turned to follow the mayor into what would be her new home. The teachers' quarters were simple but clean, one main room with a bed, table, chairs, and cooking area, plus a small adjoining washroom. After weeks of travel, it seemed like luxury to Penelope. "We're mighty pleased to have a genuine Boston-educated teacher," Mayor Hollis said proudly. "The children need proper learning, especially with the territory pushing for statehood." Penelope barely heard him, her mind still on the man who'd ridden away. She forced herself to focus. "I'm eager to meet them, Mayor. When might I see the schoolroom?" The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparations. Penelope arranged the schoolroom, reviewed the available textbooks, and created lesson plans. Townspeople stopped by to introduce themselves: the mercantile owner, the doctor, and his wife, several mothers with shy children in tow. Everyone was welcoming, but Penelope found herself watching the street, hoping to catch sight of a certain tall cowboy on a black horse. On the evening before school was to begin, a knock came at her door. Penelope opened it to find Sam standing there, hat in hand, freshly shaved and wearing a clean shirt. "Mr. Sutton," she said, unable to hide her pleasure. "What a surprise, Miss Evans." He shifted slightly, seeming uncharacteristically uncertain. "I wondered if you might like to join me for supper at the hotel restaurant, to celebrate your first day of teaching tomorrow." Penelope's heart quickened. "I would like that very much." The hotel dining room was the finest establishment in Redemption Creek, with tablecloths and proper glassware. Heads turned as they entered, the new schoolteacher and the cowboy making an unexpected pair. Over a dinner of roast beef and potatoes, Penelope learned more about Sam. He'd fought for the Union during the war, though he rarely spoke of it. He'd driven cattle up from Texas, tracked outlaws in Colorado, and once spent a winter trapped in a mountain cabin during a blizzard. Through it all, he'd carried a small volume of poetry in his saddlebag. "John Keller says I'm his best horse trainer," Sam told her. "Offered me a permanent position at the Triple K. Are you going to take it?" Penelope asked, trying to keep her voice casual. Sam studied her face. "Been thinking about it, never stayed in one place too long before." "What's stopping you this time?" His gaze was steady. "Maybe I've found a reason to stay." Heat crept into Penelope's cheeks. No man had ever spoken to her so directly before. The weeks that followed fell into a pleasant rhythm. Penelope taught during the day, growing to love her pupils despite the challenges of a one-room schoolhouse. Sam worked at the ranch but rode into town several evenings a week. They would walk along the creek, have supper at the hotel, or simply sit on the schoolhouse steps talking until the stars came out. The townspeople watched with interest as the friendship between the refined schoolteacher and the quiet cowboy deepened. Some disapproved. Sam Sutton had a reputation as a wanderer, a man who'd faced down outlaws and Indians. Others saw how he looked at her when he thought no one was watching and recognized something rare and genuine. One Saturday in early October, Sam invited Penelope to ride out to the Triple K. "John's wife is hosting a harvest dinner," he explained. "Thought you might enjoy getting out of town for a spell." The Triple K sprawled across a valley 15 miles from town, its barns and corrals a testament to John Keller's success as a cattleman. Sam led Penelope to the main house, where Mary Keller, a robust woman with laugh lines around her eyes, welcomed them warmly. "Sam's told us all about you, Miss Evans," Mary said, leading them inside where a dozen ranch hands and neighboring families had gathered. "We're just thrilled he's found such a lovely lady friend." Penelope caught Sam's eye, enjoying his momentary discomfort. "He's been very kind since my arrival." The evening was filled with good food, music from a fiddle and harmonica, and the kind of easy laughter Penelope had rarely experienced in Boston's more formal social settings. As the night progressed, Sam led her outside to the porch, where the October air carried the first hint of winter. "Cold?" he asked, noticing her slight shiver. "A little," she admitted. Sam removed his coat and draped it over her shoulders. His scent leather, pine, and something uniquely him enveloped her. "I've been meaning to ask you something," he said, leaning against the porch railing. The light from inside cast half his face in shadow. "The school board's planning a harvest dance next weekend. Thought you might allow me to escort you." Penelope smiled. "Are you asking me to a dance, Mr. Sutton?" "Trying to, Miss Evans." There was a warmth in his voice that made her pulse quicken. "Then I accept." The night of the harvest dance transformed the town hall. Lanterns hung from the rafters, casting a golden glow over tables laden with food. Nearly everyone in Redemption Creek attended, dressed in their finest. Penelope wore her best gown, a deep blue silk she'd brought from Boston, with her hair arranged in a style more elaborate than her usual teaching coiffure. When Sam arrived to escort her, his expression as he saw her made every minute of preparation worthwhile. He wore a black suit that fit his broad shoulders perfectly, his hair neatly combed, though one rebellious lock fell across his forehead. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "You clean up rather well yourself, Cowboy," she replied, enjoying the rare opportunity to tease him. The dance began with a lively reel that had everyone clapping and stomping. Penelope was surprised to discover Sam moved with grace despite his size, guiding her confidently through the steps. When the music slowed to a waltz, he drew her closer, one hand at her waist, the other holding hers. "Never thought I'd be dancing with the prettiest schoolteacher in Wyoming," he murmured. "Are there so many for comparison?" she asked lightly. "Wouldn't matter if there were." His eyes held hers. "None would compare to you." They danced until Penelope's feet ached pleasantly, took breaks for punch and conversation, then returned to the floor. As the evening wound down, Sam suggested they step outside for air. The night was clear and cool, stars scattered like diamonds across the black velvet sky. Music drifted faintly from inside as they walked toward a small garden behind the town hall. "I've been thinking," Sam said, breaking a comfortable silence. "A dangerous pastime," Penelope teased. "John's offered me a partnership at the Triple K," he continued. "A small stake in the ranch, my own parcel of land to build on." Penelope's heart beat faster. "That's wonderful, Sam. Are you accepting?" "Depends." He stopped walking and turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "Penelope, these past months have been the happiest of my life. I never thought I'd find someone who makes me want to stay in one place, who makes me think about tomorrow instead of just getting through today." "Sam," she began, but he gently squeezed her hands. "Please, let me finish before I lose my nerve." He took a deep breath. "I'm not a wealthy man. I've got some savings, strong hands, and now the chance at a future here. What I'm trying to say poorly is that I love you, Penelope Evans. I love your kindness, your courage in coming out here alone, the way you light up when you talk about your students." His voice grew husky. "I'm asking if you might consider a future that includes me." Tears welled in Penelope's eyes. "Are you proposing, Samuel Sutton? If you'll have me," he said simply. "Yes," she whispered, not trusting her voice for more. Joy transformed his face. He lifted her hands to his lips, kissing them reverently, then drew her into his arms. Their first kiss was gentle, a question asked and answered, then deepened as the stars wheeled overhead. The news of their engagement spread quickly through Redemption Creek. Most were delighted. A few expressed concern about the schoolteacher marrying a man with Sam's background. Penelope paid them no mind. She'd found something rare and precious and wasn't about to let others' opinions tarnish it. Over the next few months, Sam began building a small house on his land at the Triple K, riding into town whenever his duties allowed. Penelope continued teaching, dividing her time between her students and preparations for their spring wedding. One blustery March evening, Sam arrived at her door unexpectedly, his coat dusted with snow. "Didn't expect to see you tonight," Penelope said, drawing him inside. "The weather's turning nasty. Couldn't stay away," he admitted, shrugging off his coat. "Besides, got something to show you." From his pocket, he produced a small, worn volume of poetry. "Found this in a bookshop in Cheyenne," he said, handing it to her. "Thought you might like it." Penelope opened the book to find poems by Emily Dickinson. "Oh, Sam, it's lovely." "There's one marked," he said, a hint of shyness in his voice. "Page 24. She turned to the page and read aloud. "Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all." "Reminded me of you," Sam said softly. "How you brought hope back into my life." Penelope set the book aside and went to him, rising on tiptoes to kiss him. "I love you, Samuel Sutton." His arms encircled her, drawing her close. Outside, the snow fell harder, wind rattling the windows of the small cabin. "I should go before this gets worse," Sam said reluctantly, though he made no move to release her. "Stay," Penelope whispered, surprising herself with her boldness. Sam studied her face. That wouldn't be proper, Miss Evans. Not until after the wedding. The storm's getting worse, she said, gesturing to the window where snow was piling against the glass. You could sleep by the fire. Sam hesitated, torn between propriety and practicality. If you're sure. As the evening progressed, the storm intensified into a full blizzard. They sat close together before the fire, reading from the poetry book, talking of their plans for the future. When the hour grew late, Penelope reluctantly rose to prepare for bed. I'll sleep here by the fire, Sam assured her, arranging a makeshift bed on the floor. Penelope disappeared behind the screen that separated her bed from the main room. She changed into her nightgown and robe, then re-emerged, her hair loose around her shoulders. Sam had removed his boots and outer shirt, leaving him in his undershirt and trousers. The firelight played across his features as he added another log to the flames. "Good night, Sam," she said softly. He looked up, his expression softening. "Good night, Penny." Penelope slipped into her narrow bed, listening to the howling wind and the occasional creak as Sam settled onto the floor. Despite the warmth of her quilts, she felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. After several restless minutes, she spoke into the darkness. "Sam, are you awake?" "Yes," came his immediate response. "I'm cold," she admitted. She heard him rise, expected him to add more wood to the fire. Instead, his footsteps approached her bed. "Do you want another blanket?" Penelope gathered her courage. "I want you to hold me." Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken thoughts. "Penny," he said finally, his voice strained. "We agreed to wait until after the wedding." "I know," she whispered, "but I'm not suggesting. I just want you near me, please." Sam hesitated, then carefully sat on the edge of her bed. "It's a small bed, Penny." Penelope looked up at him, his face dimly visible in the firelight. "You'll never fit in my bed," she whispered. A slow smile spread across his face. "Then sleep on me instead," he said softly, stretching out beside her and opening his arms. Penelope moved into his embrace, resting her head on his chest, listening to the steady beating of his heart. His arms encircled her, one hand gently stroking her hair. "Better," he murmured. "Perfect," she sighed, feeling warmer and safer than she ever had. They lay together, listening to the storm raging outside while finding perfect shelter in each other's arms. Somewhere in the night, Penelope drifted to sleep, lulled by Sam's warmth and the promise of all their tomorrows. Morning arrived with brilliant sunshine reflecting off pristine snow. Penelope woke slowly, aware of unfamiliar warmth and the steady rise and fall of the chest beneath her cheek. Sam was already awake, watching her with tender eyes. "Morning," he said softly. "Morning," she replied, making no move to leave his embrace. "Sleep well." "Better than I have in years," he admitted, brushing a strand of hair from her face. In the clear light of day, there should have been awkwardness or regret, but Penelope felt only certainty. This man, this kind, brave, unexpected man, was her future. 2 more months until the wedding, she mused. Sam smiled. 61 days. Not that I'm counting. They married on a perfect May afternoon, with wildflowers dotting the meadows and new leaves adorning the cottonwoods. The entire town turned out, the schoolchildren throwing flower petals as Penelope walked down the aisle of the small church. Sam stood waiting, tall and proud in a new suit, his eyes never leaving hers as she approached. When they exchanged vows, his voice was steady and sure, promising to love, honor, and cherish her all the days of his life. Their new home on the Triple K land was modest but well built, with large windows overlooking the valley and mountains beyond. Sam carried her across the threshold as tradition demanded, setting her down gently in what was now their home. That night, as they lay together in their marriage bed, considerably larger than her teacher's cot, Penelope smiled at the memory of that stormy evening. "What's that smile for?" Sam asked, propping himself on one elbow to look down at her. "I was just thinking about the night of the blizzard," she admitted. "When I told you that you'd never fit in my bed," Sam chuckled, the sound rumbling deep in his chest. "And now look at us." "Yes," Penelope said, drawing him closer. "Look at us." Years passed, and Redemption Creek grew from a frontier town into a proper small city. Penelope continued teaching until their first child was born, a daughter with her father's blue eyes and her mother's determined spirit. A son followed 2 years later, then another daughter after that. The Triple K prospered under John Keller's guidance and Sam's dedicated partnership. Their small house expanded to accommodate their growing family, though they kept it simple and warm, filled with books and laughter. On their 10th anniversary, Sam presented Penelope with a gift, a new bed hand-carved from walnut, large enough for 2 people and occasionally a child scared by thunderstorms or seeking comfort after a nightmare. "So I'll always fit," he explained with a smile, running his hand over the smooth headboard. "You always did," Penelope replied, leaning into his embrace, "from that very first night." As they stood together, watching the sunset paint the Wyoming sky in shades of gold and crimson, Penelope reflected on the journey that had brought them here. A broken stagecoach, a chance encounter, a blizzard, and those simple words that had changed everything. "You'll never fit in my bed," and his reply that had opened the door to their future. "Then sleep on me instead." Some might call it chance. Penelope knew better. It was destiny, written in the stars that shone so brightly over the western sky, the same stars that had witnessed their first meeting and would watch over them for all the years to come.